This is North Pod, a North Melbourne fan podcast, hosted by Jason Hunt.
Stevenson with his own moves. Carrington. North are in front.
This week I've got a special triple podcast crossover with the Further North podcast and Hashtag Kangaroos. We got together towards the end of last year to have a chat about the season, and we did again today just to chat about our thoughts about the upcoming season, make some predictions, and just generally chinwag about what to expect from the AFL season and North Melbourne this year. So I'll bring that to you in just a moment. Just the usual, like, subscribe, hit me up on socials at NorthPod Show. That's where you can find me. And if you're able or interested in donating, you can buy me a coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I promise that I'll buy some vanilla Coke with it. No pressure, but all those options are there for you in the show notes, on my link tree, or at NorthPod Show on social media. Let's jump right into the chat with Dean and Josh now. At NorthPod Show on social media. Let's jump right into the chat with Dean and Josh now.
Like the match sim last week, and you can sort of tell they're trying to instill a game plan of a bit of run and gun, trying to intercept, then quickly transition to football. Even when a team kicks behind, they're quick to run and spread. If a player stops and stands still, 30 metres out from his defensive half, there's players always screaming, go, run, go, go, go. Like, so there's going to be a bit of run and gun, which might come with a bit of pain because as you know, we've got a lot of players that can turn the ball over. So, yeah, it might be but we might surprise a few teams as well. So, yeah, and hopefully one of them will be Essendon. But, I think there'll still be a bit of pain as far as wins and losses goes this year.
Did it look kind of similar to that last round game against Gold Coast? Because I feel like we were really running gun in that game, and it sort of paid off in the second half. But there were other times throughout the year where we tried that, and as you say, we got burned. But I felt like the shackles were kind of off in that Gold Coast game. Did it look kind of similar to that?
Yeah, I think our list is built for that sort of style of football. We don't have any key position players really outside of Nick Larkey. Anyone that's recognisable anyway that you could sort of say quality AFL footballers. So, and we've got a lot of mid-size, as you know, half forwards and midfielders. So it makes sense that we want to sort of play that style of football. I know we were very aggressive with halfback flankers. I know as Colby McKercher was playing there. Harry Shields spent a bit of time there, Josh Godas, and a couple of others. So it's definitely going to be, trying to intercept the football. I think that's the modern day football these days. I mean, you see Collingwood play it. I mean, it'd be nice if we had a Darcy Moore in the back half that could intercept everything, but we'll give it a try and see how we go, I suppose.
Yeah. What about you, Josh? What are you expecting from the
easy? I guess the easiest way to say is improvement. I don't know exactly if I should put exact wins or anything like that. In my head, I've got if you can give me 6 wins, maybe 5 or 6 to be a bit more conservative, I think I'll be pretty happy. But, I kind of want them to just play good football and to be fun to watch again. I think that's a big step to take. I think Dean's right. It does seem like it's going to be a lot more run and gun. And on our day, it could be very exciting to watch. We might be able to pull off a couple more wins. But when it's not our day, I think we could see a few more big losses. But in my head, I've got 6 wins and be competitive. That's what I would love to see. But, round 1 could change that prediction completely. So I don't know. I think 6 wins, but I don't really mind where we finish on the ladder. I think it's more about, getting more wins and just looking like we're going to be a problem in a few years.
I think that's the thing. At the start of last year, I know we were all thinking, oh my God, it might all come together pretty quickly. And, the next 20 weeks happened. But I guess that I sort of agree. I'd love to see the game style really at least get nailed down in terms of what it looks like when it goes well. And we can start to figure out kind of what cattle's going to get us there, because I know it's all well and good to say we're going to play aggressive, but if we don't have those players that can hit targets, it will end up looking pretty ugly. So hopefully we get to, I guess, weed out those players that are able to play that game style. And you'd certainly hope those high draft picks like McKercher can slot into that. But I guess it's, those other sorts of mid-range players, which of them are going to make it and which ones aren't, I guess.
This run and gun sort of style as well. If we can't figure out how to kick into our forward 50, I don't know where our scoring's going to come from. And I don't think we're going to have much defense, but I don't know. If we can just like a full season of Clarkson, hopefully, and a full preseason of Clarkson and kicking into that forward line and actually hitting Larky on the chest or someone else, I think then we could see a fun brand of football. But yeah, if our forward 50 entry is like last year's, it could be grim, but let's hope that they are running in transition.
That's the challenge, because I think Larky as a key forward, who obviously is an amazing key forward, he kicked 70 odd goals, but he's not a kick it up high and take a pack mark. He really needs it on the lead or one out. So you're right. We've got to find those players who can kick it inside 50 and hit him on the lead or kick it to his advantage rather than just kicking it high and hoping. Because I don't think we've got any players that can reliably take a pack mark in the forward line, and it's just not really the modern game. So hopefully we can find a few that can kick it inside 50 with some venom and give our forwards a chance.
There was one forward that looked really good. That was probably the most damaging forward on the weekend. He's not even on our list, is Tyler Sellers. He looked really good. He could take a pack mark. He plays a lot taller than he is.
How tall is he, do you know?
193 centimetres. So he plays a lot taller than that. He ragdolled Biggie Newen a couple of times. Oh, and that's probably a sign that is a bit small on a small side, Biggie Newen. But still, he looked really good. In tough conditions, he certainly held himself pretty well against Callum Dawson as well. So, yeah, he's one forward that I would like to see on the list, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and we've got that one spot. So we could, there's potential that we could grab him there or grab him in the middle of the year, I suppose, if he wanted to be grabbed in the middle of the year. I guess I worry that we have several of those mid-sized forwards like Zerha and now Dersma. But as you say, if he's ready-made and he can do it for a few years, like I'd love to be competitive. So I won't say no. It's interesting.
Like I guess Podsy Adley coming in or something.
Well, that's right. I mean, we're not quite at the same list profile as Geelong were at that point, but you're right. Like he came in and played a significant role as a mature age player. So it's not out of the question.
Jack Anthony the other one for Collingwood? Like, is that it? John Anthony, Jack Anthony, whatever his name was?
Yeah, Jack Anthony. Yeah. He went from fullback.
He was an older recruit. This is some real deep dive into some players I haven't thought about for a long time.
Yeah, I have not thought of Jack Anthony in a long time.
No.
Who are some players that that you've kind of got your eye on in terms of improving significantly this year, Josh?
I did write a couple down. I will just go through these, but one I've got off the top of my head, Will Phillips. I think it's the year that he needs to step up. We know his potential, and I definitely feel like we forget that he's a number 3 draft pick as well, and he did go that high for a reason. It's interesting because I feel like the first, before he was sick, played on that like outside mid or that wing sort of role, and when he went inside this year, he looked a lot better when Ratton sort of first came in, and especially I remember, I think it was that Sydney game where he was getting a lot of clearances out of the middle, sort of his in and under work, and he's got very clean hands. So I feel like he has to do it this year. The other two I've written down here. One's Paul Curtis, because I think he's got that much potential and talent that he needs to have a big year. I think first year was electrifying. Second year, the old sophomore slump, maybe not quite as exciting, but we know he can do it. And on his day, he's great. So I'd love a year to sort of establish him as our second or third best forward. And the last one I got, I guess, going in our conversation before, is the guy that I continually back, but no one else does, which is Callum Coleman-Jones. I think I still see it with him. I don't know why. Maybe I'm deluded, but I don't know. I really like what he did for that 1 month of footy. He was good, and I think it's a massive hole in the team. So I think he's got the shape and the size to be a good forward and play in the ruck, but I'm under no illusion that he's still not good enough, but I think he can do it. So he's probably my number 1 in my heart, but realistically, I think Will Phillips and Paul Curtis need to step up a little bit from last year.
Yeah, I think if there's any team that Callum Coleman-Jones is going to get a go in terms of an extended run at, it's North. I mean, he's got no competition for that second forward / backup ruck spot in the side. So he's if he can stay away from concussions and injury, I think he'll get a good run at, proving himself, so to speak. I don't know that he's got a lot of footy smarts. I think he's a big body, but
I don't think any
think,
ruckman's got a lot of footy smarts.
No, that is true. It comes with the territory. So
Yeah.
maybe he needs to think of himself more as a forward, and he might, start playing better. But
Would you feel confident going to a pub quiz with Hamish Free, Tristan Jerry, and Callum Coleman Jones? Because I wouldn't. So
I would not, I'd feel confident if they were on the opposition.
Yeah, that is true. Can I ask a question really quickly? Because I was thinking about this. Obviously, people know that I'm a CCJ believer, but I don't know anybody else who is. Do you guys think I'm like that deluded with it, or do you kind of see where I'm coming from, or am I just completely, do I know nothing about football? Because I'm not saying he's going to be an amazing player, but I really do think that month patch he just brought this thing to the team that we haven't had. He was taking those marks on the wing. He probably could have kicked a few more goals, but I think he's a decent shot at goal. It was more his forward presence and wing marking more than his ruck work. But everyone else seems to just have completely written him off. But I don't know. Am I crazy?
Oh, well, you and Siobhan Rowe should go on a podcast together because she's really high on him as well. So
okay,
look, he looked good on Friday. He played in the ruck because Tristan.
I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, and he actually used his body weight for a change because that's always been a knock of him. He's a 200 centimetre, 105 kilo player, and he gets nudged over the ball too easily. Drops. For a tall guy, he drops a fair few marks, but he's certainly got potential. That's why we recruited him here and got him on a big contract. He played some really good games for Richmond, 2 or 3 really big games, won him a game as a forward. So you're not deluded. But the jury is certainly still out for him. No, the jury is out for him. It's a big year for him. Trying to get him healthy has probably been another thing. He still had lingering concussion issues from last year, only as recent as a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully that's behind him. And because
I thought it was Sam Jacobs' situation.
Yeah, well, that's right. So, there's been a few players that have certainly struggled. So, I'll throw it over to Jason, get his opinion about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the fence. I'm probably not as high as you, Josh, but I don't think he's a dud. I think there's a part of me that's like always a player that gets traded in. You really want them to go well because you want to think that you've won that trade. So part of me is like, gee, I'd love it if he came off as an absolute jet. We've essentially traded him for Robbie Tarrant, more or less. So it'd be great if we could say we've gotten the best years out of Tarrant and then we just move that on to
we got
CCJ.
Paul Curtis in that trade, though, didn't we? Did we get the pick for him in that deal? Yeah.
I think you might be right. So, I mean, probably won that trade anyway. But I think any traded play, I always want them to succeed a little bit more. Like I feel that way about Jaden Stevenson too. Similar to Dean, I think he needs to figure out how to use his strength. But you're not wrong. He played a really important role in that month. And I think if he can be a bit more consistent with that and also, be at least serviceable in the ruck for maybe 20% of the game, then I'm happy days. I know I don't rate him as a ruckman personally. I think he's a forward by nature. But, there's definitely a role for him if he can do it. So I'm not as high as you, but I am relatively high. I think there's a lot of potential there in terms of his frame. It's just whether or not he can put his footy smarts together, I think.
Yeah, fair.
Fair enough.
Dino, what about you in terms of players that you've got an eye on to improve this year?
Yeah, I agree with Josh and Paul Curtis. I'm really high on him this year. I think he could be almost as a second forward. If Nick Larkey's getting double teamed, triple teamed, you can push him up outside 50 onto a wing and let Paul Curtis isolate in the forward 50. He's a very good one-on-one player, plays a lot taller than what he is. Similar to a Bailey Fritsch, very highly classed individual. He kicked that goal of the year last year. We were seeing little patches of it.
Yeah.
I expect him to really have a good year this year. I'm actually tipping him for 40-plus goals this year. I think he'll have he'll come in handy with the run and gun style of football. I like Josh Goda off the halfback line as well. Really long penetrating kick. I expect him to step up. He looked good in the intra-club match in the back six. That round 23 game against Gold Coast is just a small sample. I know that, but he looked really good rebounding the ball outside the back 50. Very, very good one-on-one player. Probably might even play as a lockdown small defender that can transition the ball as well. So he's another one.
Yeah, I love Goda in theory. I hope that he can, similar to CCJ, I hope he can stay fit. I think his knee really troubled him last year when he was able to get on the park. So hopefully the summer he's been able to rest that up and launch into the year. I think 40 goals, a big call for Paul Curtis. I'd love 40 goals. I mean, yeah, who knows? I think you're right. He certainly had a quite a year last year, but I think when I was looking at his stats, he actually had a pretty similar year stats wise. I think it's that expectation rises after you've had a good first year, and that you can't necessarily back up that performance second year. So yeah, I'd love to see him up that. I think if he could just add that crumbing to his game, because he's that smaller size, but he really plays as a marking lead up or a slingshot out the back kind of forward. I'd love it if he could be at Larky's feet more often. We saw he could do it a bit in that West Coast game in Perth last year. I'd just love to see him add a bit more of that small forward craft, because we don't really have a bona fide small forward in the side. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, we don't have any small. Oh, we've got Robert Hanson and Blake Drury, but they're well down the pecking order at the moment. And you can't just pick a small forward for the sake of picking a small forward. Sometimes you just got to go, like you said, a Paul Curtis, and hope for the best, really. And maybe Josh Simpkin plays a bit of a crumbing forward this year as well. He might push out of the midfield a little bit for patches. But outside of that, it's really slim pickings with a small forward, as there is with a couple of other positions as well as the sounds of it.
Yeah, well, we've got plenty of midfielders, so don't you worry about that. We've got midfielders coming out of our ears. Anyway, you talked a little bit about Goda. I guess we'll whip through a couple of predictions or just discussion points, really. And maybe, Josh, you could start us here. Like, who, off that half back line, at least to me, I think those rebounding defenders that are in maybe on the fringes of the side are probably players like Bergman, Goda, and Archer. I think Fisher's probably a lock as that halfback. We know that Sheasel did it last year, but doesn't look like he's going to do that this year. So if it's Bergman, Goda, and Archer, and maybe you've got someone else you want to throw in there, like, who do you think is going to play the rest of those minutes off halfback this year, at least to start us off?
Off halfback, I think Bergman and Goda are definitely going to be preferred over Jackson Archer. I love Jackson Archer, and I think he, should be in the 22 if he's fit. Only because I don't see anyone else who can play a bit of a lockdown role, but I wouldn't trust him rebounding off half back. I don't think he's quick enough, or maybe has the disposal from his feet quite like the other two do. I think I'd pick Goda. I'm pretty high on Bergman though, but I think they're very different players. I think Clarkson would go with Goda personally, but if you're asking me, I'd probably pick Jackson Archer, only because by all reports, McKerch is going to play off halfback. Sheasel can do it. Fisher's there now. So I think another running defender, I don't know. I could see a Jackson Archer maybe fitting in the team a little bit more, because the ball might be going back over our heads a lot. So I'd prefer like a Jackson Archer down there to crash some packs, put his body on the line a bit more, and, maybe lock down a small forward. But I think Goda will get the most opportunity, because I feel like Clarko probably feels he has the most upside, and I'm fairly high on Goda too. I think I know Dean is very, very high on Goda. He's the CCJ for me in your eyes, I think, Dean. So no, yeah. I like Josh Goda, and I think he'll get the most opportunities. But I personally would probably pick a Jackson Archer just because he's so different than everybody else.
Yeah, I guess it's tricky because you're right. They are very different players. Like Goda, I think really suits what we want to do off halfback, in that he's a fantastic kick. He can run. And he's also got that height, so he sort of can play aerially as well. Bergman's a great kick, but I just don't know that he bites off tricky kicks. I think he's really good at picking a safe option.
I think he's the best disposal out of those. If I was taking anyone to kick it off half back and progress it forward, I'd probably pick Bergman to hit the target up on the wing or something like that. But I don't know. I don't know where he sort of fits. I think Jackson Archer's probably got more of the defensive side. Goda's probably more of the offensive side, and Bergman sort of sits in the middle to stabilize. But yeah, I don't know who.
Yeah, I agree that Archer's got that defensive nous. You're right. I don't know if I trust him kicking it, 30 meters out from goal if he's got to hit a tough target. But I think I kind of agree, is our best sort of medium small defending option. It's just whether or not he can add a bit of, I guess, nous with the ball. What do you think, Dean? What do you see from those three or any other players off halfback?
Well, as far as I know, Jackson Archer's still having groin troubles at the moment, so which has hampered him for probably last pre-season as well as this one. So he's still ramping up. I don't think he played on Friday, or if he did, I didn't see him. I can't remember him getting a possession or anything like that. So he's still ramping up. I think he's got a way to go. Bergman will probably be on the fringes, in and out of the team, similar to last year. So, yeah, I mean, if there's a couple of injuries, he'll probably get an opportunity. If his form's good in the VFL, which generally it is, he'll definitely get an opportunity. But I know Bailey Scott is playing a lot of halfback. He played defensive 50 on the weekend, and Dylan Stevens played on the wing. Yeah, you talked about Zach Fisher. He'll be another rebounding defender. Colby McKercher, he looks really good. Really good user of the football. Long penetrating kick. I mean, you talk about Bergman being a good kicker of football, but I think McKercher is going to be a really good option as far as a player that can break the lines as well as hit a target. And Harry Sheasel looked a lot more comfortable. I know you're going to talk about him later, but he looked a lot more comfortable playing off halfback than he did in midfield on Friday.
Well, why don't we talk about that now? I think all the expectation was that, he was going to either move into the midfield or to the forward line or a combination of both. And I know that you made the comment on your podcast that he didn't look he didn't look as good when he was up the field. So do you want to unpack that a bit more? Like what did you mean by that?
Well, he didn't get as many touches as probably a Wardlaw. He didn't work as well as probably the B team. There was a B team like Powell, Phillips. They had the Watkins VFL player as well in that midfield, whereas we tried Wardlaw, LDU, and Sheasel. He probably struggled a bit. He's probably the worst midfielder out of them all in the first quarter. Then he went back to half-back, and he looked like the player that he was last year. So he might have a combination of play. Like I'd still like him seeing him in midfield because he's good user of football, and I'd like to see him kick the ball inside 50 a lot more rather than getting kicks in the back pocket, half-back flanks. So, yeah, look, it might be a season of transitioning more into the midfield where he still play half-back as well. He hasn't played forward at all. From all reports during the pre-season, so I'm not too sure if that's going to happen. It certainly doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, I feel so bad for him because let me caveat this by saying he's obviously had a wonderful 2023, but I do think he's going to come into this next year or this year with sort of Nick Dacos-like expectations that he's just going to step into the midfield and still be elite. And, whilst he had an elite season last year, it's pretty tricky to translate, playing off halfback into playing in the midfield. So I certainly would love to see him play more in the middle and also up the ground in the forward line if things are going well for us. I think we just need him where the ball is. But as you say, it's probably going to take an adjustment for him. What would you like to see from Harry, Josh?
Yeah, I think I made a comment as well that I think last year he showed he's too talented to maybe be put in the back or the forward line. I think it might be a year of trying him in the midfield personally. He's got too many skills like a Nick Dacos to trial that or not trial that, sorry. So I would like to see him in the midfield and him sort of to be stuck with, especially if a Taron Thomas isn't around. I would love him to, really get his crack in there. But I could fully see him just going straight back to halfback if it's not working as well. I guess it depends how a Jai Simpkin goes as well. If Jai, say, goes into the middle and looks really, really good, you've got Wardlaw, you've got Jai, you've got LDU going through there. I don't know, Will Phillips or a Power gets his chance. I could see him going back to halfback. Halfbacks are just basically midfielders these days anyway. So I don't know. I'd love to see him in the midfield because I think he's one of our most talented players. And if he clicks in there, he could be elite. But I could definitely see him getting put back on that halfback line if he doesn't quite work out. But the pressure is on for him. And it shouldn't be. I mean, he's only going to be 19 or something this year. So I don't know. He's like our Nick Dacos, right? So we're going to put pressure on him, but I don't know. He rose to it last year and burst through the roof of that. So I'd back him.
Yeah. And I guess the challenge, so to speak, is maybe it's not a challenge. We have so many midfielders that if he's not playing well in there, we don't need to play him there. We've got plenty of others. So I think we've got to figure out where he can play well, but also, think long-term where we want him to play. And I can't imagine a world in which we don't want him to play a midfield / half forward role long-term. It's just what's going to, I guess, give us best return at this point. I've got a list here of some players that I don't think personally are going to get a game, but I guess I'd just like some input if you think they might. So I've got Taylor Goad, Hardiman, Biggie Newen, Will Dawson, Finbar Maley. I still love that name. Hamish Free. Do you, Dean, or Josh think any of these players are going to get a game this year based on form, I guess? Maybe we'll start with you, Josh.
Yeah, I do. I'm a little bit of a Biggie believer. I don't know. I feel like from what I've heard, Callum Dawson's doing very, very well in the sim matches, and I'm excited for Cal Dawson. But I don't know. I love Biggie's athleticism, and I think he could maybe find a spot as that like third defender, maybe cutting across packs a little bit. I know his body weight maybe isn't quite up there, and he's a little bit raw, but sheer athleticism and being able to cut across packs or intercept mark, I think he could be good. It's just a gut feel from me because all reports Callan is probably the one out of the, say, Pink, him and Biggie that is probably going to get that third opportunity. But I don't know. I have a feeling he'll play at least a couple of games, and I would back him to do okay. Other than that, I don't think Will Dawson's going to get a look in. We got too many, for lack of a better word, not to be too mean, we've got too many very mediocre options in key defense. So I think those other three guys are going to get a chance before he does. But he's like 17 or something like that. I think that's long term. Who are the other guys? I could maybe see Goad getting a chance, but that's merely because of my opinions on the ruck situation, which we all know. But I mean, that's a break glass in case of emergency sort of stuff. And maybe the other one is Finbar, but only if I don't see him getting a game unless they give him a crack as a key forward. Wasn't he, Dean, you were there. Did he train with the back line or is he playing in the back line a little bit?
No, he was playing spells in the forward line.
Okay.
He looked okay. Took a couple nice contested marks. Had a couple of little spells in the ruck as well. So he's quite a tall unit. He'll develop. Like, he won't get a game early. I don't think he'll get a game early.
Yeah.
But, he's a player that you look out for in the VFL, that if he strings 3 or 4 good weeks together, he's a player when we're struggling in the second half of the year, we just want to throw a few kids out there. He'll probably be a player that might get an opportunity then. But, he won't get one early, I wouldn't think.
No, because I think with him, like if Larkey did go down, or I'd say Coleman Jones is probably the second option up there, they'd more than likely run with a smaller forward line. But if someone was going to get a key position up there after those two, I don't think we've got many more options, and I could see him getting a crack. So yeah, they're probably the ones I would pick out of that list.
Yeah, I think I'd much prefer to swing Charlie Comben forward again rather than, break that glass in case of emergency.
Yeah.
But we really don't have many options in the forward line because we've moved Comben out of there. So
I would hate to see Chom go back forward though. If he's in the back line and that's where we see him long term, even if our forward stocks crumble, it's like Griffin Logue when he went forward for a couple of games. Like, just keep him in the back line and figure it out, because it's a massive year for Charlie Comben figuring out how to be a defender. And if he's going to be our key defender for the next 10 years, I don't know. I don't want us to panic and then throw him forward again. Just, I don't know, like a gap filler. I don't know. Is that crazy to think? Or just keep him down there so he can learn. Don't just move him because we have no other option. We've got a guy like Finbar for a reason, to be able to come in and maybe play that role. I know he's not meant to be playing because he's a rookie, but like, I don't know. I don't want to see us panic and then throw Comben forward again. Just keep him there, let him learn his trade, and then throw Finbar in and maybe he kicks 3 goals and we're like, wow, where'd this bloke come from?
And I would love Finbar to work just because he's got all the makings of a cult hero. I mean, bang a name. Yeah. It's a tall bloke. He looks a bit rough.
Good on the guitar.
He absolutely could be a cult hero. He just needs to be good at footy. That's the one thing he needs.
It's a lot of our players' problem there, unfortunately.
and that is true. Dean, did you want to add anything to those comments around those players?
Yeah, I think Biggie Nguyen will play round 1. He was in the ones team, and I think Josh hit the nail on the head. He'll be the third defender as well. I think we'll go with Callum Dawson. I'll put him as a lock, as one of the defenders. He looked really good Friday. Very good at communicating. Very good one-on-one. Took a couple of nice intercepts as well. Tracked back really well as well. So, I'm putting him as a lock. I'm not so sure what Aiden Core is, but he's still ramping up with his ankle injury. So, that limits our options. Obviously, Griffin Logue probably looking at round 10 onwards before he comes back, and that'll probably take a few weeks before he ramps up playing VFL and so forth. So I'll say Biggie Nguyen. Will Dawson looked okay. He's very skinny, very raw. I think he's the youngest player in the AFL at the moment. I think he's just turned 18 or something around that. Taylor Goad was just doing laps. Riley Hardiman will get a game early, I think. I think he's a very good he looked very good with the yellow team. I know we talk about halfback flankers and, how many we've got, but, good user of football. Got a good left foot. So he's definitely a chance. quite early. And Hamish Free, I'm going to put a line through him. I don't think he'll play an AFL game. I'd be surprised
I
if he
agree.
did anything.
Well, good to have him in case all of our ruckmen go down with season-ending knee injuries, I suppose. But I tend to agree. I haven't seen much from him that makes me think he's going to make any sort of leap.
No, he played against Callum Jones and got towed up on Friday. So, and that's in
Because
the
CCJ is so good, Dean. All right. I've been saying
so
this. It's his time.
If he plays against Hamish Free every week,
He'll be right.
Callum Jones plays against Hamish Free every week, he'll be the number one ruckman in all Australian. So
You heard it here first.
yeah.
If you were going to go Biggie or Callan Dawson for round one, who do you reckon you'd go? Because do you think they've both got a chance of playing? If I'd assume Core and Comben are going to be there. I know Core's still ramping up, but I'd assume they're going to be there. Do you think they both play if Core and Comben are there, or would you pick one or the other?
Oh, I don't think Comben will play round one, to be honest with you. He's still ramping up from his injury last year. He ran laps in the second half, so he was in the seconds team as well. So I think they'll go with Dawson, Newen, and Core as your main three defenders. So yeah,
okay, terrifying.
Sorry to put a dampener for your host in 4 weeks' time there, Josh.
Yeah, look, I'll send Charlie a message. He's got to get on there. He's going to be my favourite player this year. I've already decided. So, I don't know. Our defense sucks. I hate it. Anyway, sorry, I'm just getting emotional.
All right, we'll move on. There was initially talk of, I guess, part of the reason that Zach Fisher wanted to leave the Blues was that he was looking for more midfield time. And I certainly don't see him fitting into our midfield lineup if things were all going well. But where do you boys sort of see him playing most of his footy? Is it all going to be at half-back, or do you want to, I guess, flip him around a little bit and see where he can play? What are your thoughts, Dean?
Yeah, when he first came to the club, when he got traded there, he said he spoke to Clarkson, and Clarkson sort of said to him, "We see you as a rebound defender." He did average, in his last month of football at Carlton, he averaged 25 touches a game, playing as a rebound defender till the finals came where he got dropped. But I think that will be his role. Yeah, maybe he could even possibly, if we've got too many numbers, push as a small forward, because he has played a bit of footy there before. But at this stage, if I had to take a guess, I think he'll be a rebound defender that might push up onto the wing for little spells as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I sort of said before that halfbacks of that ilk are basically midfielders these days anyway. So, yeah, I think rebounding defender, him and Dylan Stevens, a few overlapping handballs to each other would be nice. But, if the game gets a bit gritty, I could see him running off halfback sort of through the middle to receive a handball out from somebody. And, yeah, I think that role these days is basically pretty midfield centric. So he'll get his midfield minutes, I'm sure. But yeah, rebounding halfback, definitely.
Yeah, I think that certainly seems, as you say, Dean, that's what Parko's told him he's going to play. And I think let's start him there. I do hope that there's, if things aren't functioning well in the forward line in particular, that we sort of keep him available as an option as that small forward, because he is on the smaller side and he's obviously got, he knows how to find the footy. So to me, there's a chance that he could become that small forward that we're so lacking. I guess I worry about his tackling pressure and his corralling. I'm not sure if that's a strength of his, but yeah, I'd like to see us experiment a bit with him, I guess, and throw him around after the first half of the year, particularly if, things aren't going well where he is. But I think you're both right. I think it's probably likely he spends most of his time down back. We did talk a little bit about the tools just before. And I know that you said that you don't think Comben's going to play around one based on what you saw in the match sim, Dean. As you also said, we're waiting for Logue to come back probably middle of the year somewhere. How do we feel about, our tool defensive stocks? I know that I guess the consensus is we've got lots of average options. Could we play just core and one other tool? Do we need core and two tools? Like, what are your thoughts there? Maybe Josh, if you want to get us started.
I guess it depends how a few of these guys go with the chances they get. You never know. Like, Biggie's very raw and could come in and be atrocious, but could also be like, oh, he was pretty good. Let's keep giving him minutes. Pink, I think, is the ultimate. I've got no idea what that guy's going to be, because I think we've all talked ourselves into being like, oh, he's a mature body. He's played a lot of football before, so he'll be all right, but he's also never played an AFL game. So I don't really know. I think I'd like to see everyone get spurts of opportunities, and whoever takes their opportunity gets a bit more of a consistent run. It's a weird one with Aiden Core because he clearly only knows how to play football when he's the second sort of tall defender, but I don't think he's good enough as a tall defender. He's a good player, but, if he was matching up on a Tom Hawkins or a Charlie Kerner, he's never, ever going to win that matchup. So I'm not sure. I think we're going to go small in the back line and smaller in the forward line because I don't think we have many more options. But yeah, I don't know. We've got, like you said, we've got so many fairly average, at this point, pretty average options in key defense. And hopefully they all get a little chance and then one of them works out,
I certainly hope so. I've got, I guess, things are all relative. I was going to say I've got high hopes for Kellen Dawson, and I think it's just higher in comparison to the rest. I don't know that I've got hopes that he's going to become the next All-Australian fullback. But I do think that he can play a role, I guess. What do you think, Dean? Who do you see as those key backs starting off at least?
Yeah, it'll be Core and Callum Dawson, and I think Biggie Newen would be the floater, like the intercept guy that will leave his opponent. They'll try and put him on the weakest forward from the opposition and sort of just be that intercept type of player or third man up that will help out. Like Josh said, we don't have many options for like a Charlie Curnow, Harry Mackay, Tom Hawkins. We don't have that big bulk and fullback or anything like that. So, yeah, we'll probably just have to play Naden Core, Callum Dawson, hope for the best. Toby Pink, he actually looked okay in the match sim game on Friday. He actually played a good game. He was in the seconds team, and yeah, he was quite reliable. Played his role, communicated really well. He's quite loud on the field, so he could certainly be someone that surprises us. And round 3 or 4 come into the team after a couple of good VFL performances, and maybe take Biggie Newen's spot if it's not working out with him.
Yeah, I think that my problem, or I guess my tension with Biggie Newen, is that I think Core, I know that I agree Aiden Core doesn't play well when he is playing on like a third tall, but I think he's actually quite good as a third man up. So in my mind, at least, I don't know if Core and Biggie Newen have very similar roles, albeit they're obviously very different players. Yeah, I guess I haven't seen enough from Biggie. My expectations are quite low just because he spent 4 years on the Richmond list and played 1 game. So, they obviously weren't seeing enough from him to think that he could make it. But I certainly hope he proves them wrong. And I think, I think Toby Pink looks like he's going to be great insurance. I don't think he's, I guess, the future, but you never know. You can find a diamond in the rough like we talked about Podsy Adley earlier on. You just never know if you pick up some mature age recruit. They can turn into something. So, you never know. If we pivot to the other half of the ground, the forward line, I think, we've talked about a million half-back options, and we've similarly got a million half forward options. I guess what are we thinking could our 6 or 7 kind of forwards look like? In terms of tools, we know we've got CCJ, maybe Maley, Dersma, Zerha, and Ford kind of play taller, even though they're really mediums, and Greenwood's similar. And then we've got that whole host of half forwards that I guess you guys could speak to when you're talking about your players. But yeah, who do you think, Josh, is going to make a statement in this first half of the year in that forward line?
I guess, yeah, I'm hoping Paul Curtis, like we sort of said before. If you want like an option from me from a key forward, I think I would love that to be CCJ. But I think Zerha, obviously even just from the sunglasses and the rig he's got going on in the preseason here, I'm hoping for a massive year from Bull. I think they'll go with the Larkey and Zerha 1-2 combo up there. I don't want to bank too much on a Dersma. I know he's a bit taller, but obviously very slight. I think Zerha and Paul Curtis are the two, if we're going to go outside of Nick Larkey, that could make a massive impact. And if they could be 30 to 40 goal scorers every season, probably more towards the 40 if you want to be one of the better sort of forwards in the comp, they're the ones I would be looking to. As for a backup key forward, I'm interested to see what Greenwood does. As much as he played okay in that role in the few or limited chances that he did get, he also has never really been a forward before. So I think that'll be a very interesting one. I would like to see if he's in the round 1 team, just to be able to swing between a ruck for 5% of the game and sort of going into the forward line. I think that'll be very, very interesting. But I did say on my last podcast, which was our best 23s, that I feel more comfortable going with a Coleman Jones and Greenwood ruck rotation. And I know some people are going to be very upset at that, but I don't know. They can both sort of play in the ruck. They can both sort of play in the forward line. I think we've got it once again, a lot of kind of average options outside of Paul Curtis and Zerha backing up in that forward line. So if you want my two names, I guess they're the ones I would be going with, because the other one would be Dersma, but he's a rookie, so I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I think he's going to turn into a star, but it's probably rough to hope that he's going to be that way this year. What do you think, Dino? What do you see in the forward line this year?
Yeah, a lot of mid-sized forwards: Stevenson, Zerha, Paul Curtis, Eddie Ford. Yeah, Dersma. He looks like a player that doesn't. He didn't get many touches, but every time he got the ball, there's a certain amount of quality about him. Kicked 2 goals, really good goals from limited opportunities. And that might be his role just for this year. There'll be games where he only gets 5 or 6 touches, but he might kick 2 goals or 3 goals in that sort of role. Long way to go. He's very raw, very skinny young man, but a lot of quality about him. Look, he'll probably be in the round 1 team. He'll get an opportunity with Colby McKerch. I think Greenwood plays based because we need some experience out there. We're the youngest team in the competition. We're the least experienced team in the competition. And at least he gives us that. He's a very good leader out there. So he'll probably play as a forward at pinch hit as a second ruck to start the year with, at least anyway.
Yeah, I think one of Greenwood and Shields kind of has to play if they're available. Yeah. Just as that really much more senior player. Like we've got players like Simkin and McDonald, obviously our captains, that are also very experienced. But in terms of those 30+ players, I think it doesn't hurt to have someone who's just a really smart footy head. I don't think Greenwood's going to win us too many games, but I also don't think he's going to lose us games. So I don't mind him as an option coming off the bench or playing in that forward line. He's very tall in terms of mid-sized player, but we know that he's also going to put that pressure at forward pressure. He's a great tackler, so it doesn't hurt to have another good tackler in the midfield, in the forward line. Sorry, just looking at my list of players here, one that someone asked me about on Twitter or X during the week. What do we think's happening with Curtis Taylor? Like, can anyone see a way back into the side for him?
No, I can't personally. No, I don't know. I don't think he's like good enough at one particular thing to get in the side. I mean, I know he had those couple of games where he tagged someone okay, but I don't think the Curtis Taylor tagger revolution is coming. I think if he's playing, there's injuries, and that's about it, unfortunately. There's too many talented players in that half forward, sort of forward pocket role. The wingers are pretty locked up in Bailey Scott and Dylan Stevens. If you want someone else, Eddie Ford, I would prefer to play on that wing as well, other than him. And I mean, we've already talked about how many midfielders. I'd rather them say Will Phillips or Tom Powell tag someone other than throwing him in there and replacing someone that's more talented than him anyway. So, yeah, I think if too many Curtis Taylor is playing, then it's there's injuries, and that's about it.
Yeah, he's down the pecking order now. He only played like 10 minutes in the match sim game. I think he must have had some sort of off-season surgery because his shin was very heavily strapped. So he's ramping up. He was doing a few laps as well. He's down the pecking order, I think, unless, like Josh said, unless there's injuries during the course of the year. We've got too many options ahead of him now. And, yeah, unfortunately, he probably hasn't been consistent enough over the course of his career. And, he's another one of those players that gets to 24, 25, and he might even be out of the system because there's contract year coming up for him. So, yeah, which is a little bit disappointing because he's played 60-odd games and he's the type of player that we need into the side. But, it just hasn't come along as well as we would have liked.
It's good we've got the depth now, though, It's about time we've got some actual depth and we don't have, like, Jack Marnies and, Flynn Perez's and Phoenix Spices coming into the team when we've got an injury. I'd feel much better about a Curtis Taylor coming in because of a couple of injuries than guys like Jack Marnie. So, I don't know. As much as it sucks that you're not to pick on Jack Marnie and watch him kick 6 against us when we play the Gold Coast, but I don't know. I think it's a good problem to have that we're actually getting a little bit of depth because he's a much better quality player than what we were bringing in last season when we did get some injuries. So that if you want a positive spin on it, that would be my positive spin.
That's a good positive spin. I think there must be something in terms of the way he mustn't be a good trainer, or there's got to be something there because that 2020 year sitting at home in lockdown, like to me, he was one of the highlights. And it wasn't as though he had an amazing season, but I looked at him and I thought, yep, he can mark it, he can run, like he can kick a goal, he's going to be a good player. And he just has not improved at all, if not gone backwards since then. So
Someone needs to be on the list to get the Harry Styles tickets, mate. Who's going to get the boys into the backstages of the concerts?
yeah, that's right. Maybe that's all he's there for, just to make sure we're all happy when we go out of an evening. But
He's the morale guy, like Luke McDonald. Not saying Luke McDonald's that sort of player.
careful, Josh, you'll get yourself cancelled.
I know. Oh god, I got to lock the Instagram DMs for
now. I guess Zerha we've talked a little bit about. We know that he's going to play some forward line, and I do think that's where his best football is. But maybe we'll start with you, Dino. Like, do you want to see Zerha play more midfield minutes? Are you happy with him just getting in there a couple of times a game? What are your thoughts on Zerha slimming down and jumping into the midfield?
Yeah, well, he started there last year, didn't he? Like, I think he went in for like the odd centre bounce, which is fine. But yeah, we don't want to hinder the development of a George Wardlaw or anything like that. Yeah, look, 4 or 5 centre bounces a game is fine. Yeah, he has trimmed up a lot. Contract year coming up. It's a big year for him personally if he wants to get a big deal. So obviously he's wants to take his football a bit more seriously than he has in previous years. Still played a lot forward in the match team, I noticed, which is going to still be his role. But I don't mind him going in for the odd centre bounce. He is quite strong in there. And he did look quite good when he went in there early last year, but then got an injury and it looked like he lost a bit of fitness. Probably was eating too much food and looked like he put on 3 or 4 kilos during the course of the year. So, yeah, hopefully, yeah, I don't mind seeing the odd one, but the odd centre bounce, but I don't want to see him in there too much.
I'm incredibly on board for midfield bull. And I do kind of agree with Dean, like not all the time, but if he can play 90% midfield when we play Port Adelaide, and other than that, he goes into the forward line all the time, then I'm incredibly willing for that. I want to don't argue on the unknown named man against Port Adelaide every single season, then just stick him in the forward line for the rest of it. No, I think I love that element of chaos he can bring and say, I can't remember exactly what game it was that he played in the midfield, but when our midfield's not churning and we weren't winning many clearances, and you throw him in there for an element of chaos to see what happens and just disrupt the flow if we're not doing well, I'm all on board with that. Yeah, I think he has to be majority forward, and he's too talented, I guess, in that area. We've seen him win games off his own boot, and maybe he won't be able to do that from the midfield as much, but yeah, I think mostly forward, and hopefully he can start taking some decent pack marks and back up Larky. But as an element of chaos in that midfield when we are getting beaten, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think it's a great, like, you're spot on. He's the X factor. So
yep.
if we're looking a bit stagnant in the midfield and a bit one paced, like we know what we're going to get from a lot of those mids. Like LDU, whilst he's phenomenal, like he does what he does really well. Whereas I think Zerha could go in there and you just don't know what you're going to get. He probably doesn't know either. I think that's his problem. Half the time he's running towards goal and he's not sure if he's going to banana it from 50 or center it, and he ends up kicking out in the full. So I tend to agree. I'd love to see him inject into the midfield at times, but I do think it's important that we have someone kind of with that X factor and goal now inside 50 where possible, I guess, because I do think he's a really important player for us, and hopefully he can stay fit, and certainly hope to see him come the Port Adelaide game so he can just sit on Horn Francis again.
Put that bloke in the dirt.
That's right. I had a couple of other things written down, but I think I will just end on what I think we can all agree is the biggest question for North Melbourne season. It's probably what everyone's going to be expecting this one, but we'll go with it anyway. Which redhead do you think is going to play more games this year, Blake Drury or Toby Pink? Obviously, different ends of the ground, probably. I think Drury's more suited to the forward line, even though he did play a bit off halfback at times. Josh, what do you think? Which of the redheads is going to come through for us and play more games?
Well, look, guys, I'm happy to be the spokesperson for the North Melbourne redheaded community. I think I've had that thrust upon me anyway. So, look, you don't get any more inside information than this, and I'll tell you for a fact
that have they let you know.
Well, Well, I can't tell you about that. If I told you that, I'd have to
Okay.
kill you, unfortunately. So that's
Fair.
some stonecutters sort of stuff that you can't be involved with, sir. But you can last in the sun way too often. So, um, no, look, I think Toby Pink is going to play more games merely because our key defensive stocks aren't the best. I don't want to be real. I don't want to be really mean. I don't know if Blake Drury is going to get much opportunity, and I don't think he's got. I think his best quality or attribute is apparently leadership, and that screams a bit of Kane Turner to me. I think he's got more potential than Kane Turner, and I really back him and hope he comes in and does things. But last year when he played, I'm pretty sure every time I saw him on the field, he was in a different position. So I don't think he's got a position that they know he's going to play. Like he played off half back, I think, in that St Kilda game, and then the next game he played in the forward pocket, and even in the VFL, some weeks he'd kick three and then they'd play him in a different spot. I don't know. I'm very confused with Blake Drury, and I maybe didn't see it from him enough. So I think, one, I'm not sure Blake Drury has a position, and two, our key defensive stocks are quite mediocre. So I think, especially if Charlie Comben isn't fit or isn't playing, he's probably the next best if you want to match up on a forward that's big and is just your classic sort of key forward. So I'll go with my pale friend Toby Pink.
What do you think, Dean? Any different thoughts there?
No, I agree with that. I think it'll be Toby Pink if it's going to be one of them. Yeah, with Drury, I think he's playing as a small forward. He did that in the match sim, and that's where he's been training as far as the main groups and so forth. So yeah, I think he'll go back as a small forward where he plays junior football. They did try him in the first half of the year in the VFL as a rebound defender. Didn't quite work out. Yeah, I'm not too sure. At that sort of height, you've got to have some sort of exceptional skill. He's not a bad kick, like he can kick a football, but he doesn't have he's not overly quick for that sort of height. I think he's about 177 centimetres or maybe even smaller. So yeah, that's that makes it a lot tougher to make it in AFL football. Like Robert Hansen, at least he's got a lot of pace, and he's actually not a bad kick. So he's probably got more of the upside out of the two if you're going to pick a small forward.
That's what I was going to ask you guys as well. Who would you prefer to get a shot first, Robert Hansen or Blake Drury? Because it's Robert Hansen for me. I think that's a fairly simple one on my mind.
I think I like the upside of Hansen Jr. I agree that he's more likely to have that kind of craft and acceleration. I think he's really got some skills that we maybe don't have in that forward line. I would love it to be Drury. I don't think it's him. Similarly, I think he'll probably find himself off the list at the end of this year. And, it's absolutely, he's a rookie. So it's not like we've invested heavily in him and we're expecting big things from him. But yeah, I think it'd be Hansen Jr. for me.
Yeah, Hansen Jr. for me as well. Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, it sounds like Toby Pink's winning the redhead battle, unfortunately. Well, I guess it's not unfortunate. It's just how it is. Well, hopefully, Josh, you can shed some light on that club as the year goes on.
Well, look, I might be able to play key defense or key forward for us as well if we need some more redheads in the team. So
well, there's still a spot, mate.
Well, look, maybe that's why Sellers hasn't got on yet, because I've been in the ear of Brady Rawlings and I've been like, look, I did say this on the last podcast and this is the ultimate. I would have made it unless it was for that knee injury. But look, I won the goal kicking for the NTJFA in Tasmania 2 years in a row. So if we want this was under 16s. So if we need a key forward option who hasn't pulled on the footy boots in about 12 years, look, Finbar, you're next to me, mate. All right, give me my shot first, and then you can come in, because as long as the club can supply the 50 plus SPF sort of stuff for me, because maybe I'll only be able to play a quarter if it's a sunny day on the Gold Coast.
Well, we might. I think we'll be overexerted on that, because if we've got Drury and Pink on the list, I don't know if we can handle a third redhead. I feel like every team's got one, and we've already got two, so we're above our capacity. But I'm sure we can all
sunburn insurance in my contract costs too much money. You can't afford to have these. It's an insurance risk. I understand.
That makes sense. All right. Well, thank you, lads, for joining me on this preview podcast. I think we've covered some serious ground. Is there anything either of you want to add before I let you two go?
Yeah, just one more. I'll get your guys' opinion on this, because I get in, not Instagram, Twitter or X, whatever you call it, comments about Tom Powell, and everyone's just giving him the big Dutch rudder that he should be playing, and rusty trombones and so forth. But yeah, look, what are your opinions on him? Like, a lot of people are saying that he should be in the best 23 round one. I know you did your team the other day, Josh. Well, what do you guys think? Like, yeah, Jason, what do you think of Tom Powell? Do you think he is he should be a walk-up start for round one? He was good in the match sim on Friday, probably best on ground, but I still think there's players ahead of him at the moment.
I definitely don't think he's a walk-up start, but I do think there's a spot for him in the side. One, because, you're never 100% fit, and I think he's probably the first midfielder that I see outside of our best 23 that would come in. I just think he needs to stamp himself as kind of what midfielder he's going to be, because we know he's a great handballer, and I don't know if that's going to be enough for him to make it, in this side with the midfield depth we've got. I mean, the Taron Thomas stuff might be a saviour for him, because that's going to potentially unlock a midfield spot for him. So no, I don't think he's a walk-up start, but I do think that I see a lot of potential in his game. I just think he falls into that category of he needs out and out midfield time, and it's hard to get that in this side. I think Charlie Lazaro is kind of similar. Like, he's not good unless he's playing midfield, and there's only so many midfield minutes to go around. So I expect him to play, but probably not every single game. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I was going to ask, who would you bring in first again? Would you bring in Lazaro? Would you bring in Powell? Because I don't think Tom Powell is in the best 23 if everyone's available. I think he's close, and I think you're right, Jason, that he is probably the next the first out of the VFL to come in. But him and Lazaro are probably 1 and 2 in that. I think he's got more ability to play in a different position. I mean, was it the Essendon game he kicked a couple of goals in, or St Kilda game? I can't remember last year. So he kicked a couple of goals late in one game. Yeah. So, I think he's athletic enough to play on a wing or like a half forward, but I don't know. I don't really see him breaking into the midfield just because of the sheer talent that we do. There'll be plenty of injuries like always. And you're right, the Taron Thomas thing might help him out. So, if Tom Powell's playing, I'm not upset about it at all. And this is another one to go back to the depth thing where we've got him and a Lazaro to be able to come in, which is better than it was in years gone by. But no, I think if anyone thinks he's a walk-in starter, I don't know who they're leaving out of the team, to be honest.
And I don't know what they were watching last year, because when he came in last year, he didn't dominate. Like, there was just so many games where he drifted in and out, and he didn't have the impact that he necessarily had in that first year when I thought that he really burst onto the scene. So, yeah, I don't know. Did you want to add anything to that, Dane?
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. He's drifts in and out of games. We get lost a bit with the flashy stuff when he does a pirouette, or like Josh said, he kicked 2 goals in 2 minutes, but we didn't see him for the other 2 quarters. I think he got 2 touches in the other 2 quarters. Whereas Lazaro, I think you're going to get consistency throughout the 4 quarters. Like, you'll get 5 touches a quarter for 4 quarters. Like, he's just a solid role player. He's not flashy, but he'll play the team role. He's a sort of player that you can play. I think could play a run with role as well. If in case a midfielder is getting on top, like a Zach Merritt, you could just put him down to shut down someone. So. Yeah, but nothing against Tom Powell. It's just, I would have Lazaro ahead of him. And at this stage, in my best 23, I don't have Tom Powell in.
Yeah, I think it's as we said, like, it's a sign of the increasing depth that we've got. Whilst the depth is not, top 8 quality depth, it's at least competition for spots where it's not, as you say, where poor Jack Marnie, but it's not Jack Marnie coming in or Phoenix Spicer. We've got these players that at least we know are going to give us a floor. And maybe in the future we can build up and have that kind of depth where it's a genuine, toss up between these 3 fantastic players. But, that's what we get from being 17th in the ladder. It's not going to be, top quality replacements. So I know that the two of you have, I guess, got your own podcast. So I guess just give yourselves a plug on the way out. I know, Josh, you've got that event coming up. So do you want to start us off? What do you want to plug?
Yeah. So we've got, I'm sure most people have probably heard of All the North podcast, but Further North podcast is the one I do. And we do have a live show coming up, which has been amazing to be able to organise. The 25th of February at Bonehead Brewing. Tickets are on sale now. I think there's only a few left, and I was really blown away with the amount of tickets that did sell and everyone's excitement for it. So thank you so much for that. Charlie Comben will be down there. Marnie and all the Closer to a Flag guys will be down there, and we're going to play some games, do a season preview. There's prizes and all that sort of stuff, and the beers down at Bonehead are fantastic. So doors are 1 p.m. to come down there, have a drink, and we'll kick it off about 2 o'clock. So yeah, it'll be a fun time.
Perfect. Thanks, Josh. And anything to plug for you, Dean?
Yeah, no, I'll be there, Josh. So I've already got my tickets. So yeah, I'll definitely get down for that. Yeah, no, just hashtag Kangaroos. Yeah, you can find it on all good podcast platforms, on X at hashtag Kangas, Instagram hashtag Kangaroos podcast. Other than that, listen to all North podcasts so you can get different opinions. You get Josh and Marnie fighting against each other about players.
It happens.
It does.
Someone likened us to Harry and Meghan on the YouTube comments. When I looked at the screenshot of Harry and Meghan, I'm like, you know what? I'm just a power redheaded bloke, and she's got a bit more tan and dark hair about her. And I can't believe that someone watched the live show or watched the show on YouTube of us and thought we could be like a. I think the comment was, "I'm going to tell my kids this is Harry and Meghan." So I don't know if I love or hate that, but good on whoever commented that.
Yeah, it's not a bad likeness. You're right. It's pretty complimentary for you, I might say too. Didn't know you had that much money, Josh.
No, neither did I, mate. But I'm just going to check my bank now because maybe the dot point is in the wrong space. But
it might be.
Tell that to my mortgage. That's what's ripping me right now.
Thanks to both of you for getting together. It's always good to put our heads together and solve all the problems in North Melbourne. I'll send this file down to the boys in the club, and I'll send it to the club, and I'm sure it will put us through for a 23-0 season. So it should be all good. I'm sure we'll get together at some stage in the season and have a chat about where it's all gone wrong. But thanks for coming on, boys.
No worries, anytime.
Thanks, Jason. Good job too, hosting. Thanks for having us on. You get Josh and Marnie fighting against each other about players.
It happens.
It does.
Someone likened us to Harry and Meghan on the YouTube comments. When I looked at the screenshot of Harry and Meghan, I'm like, you know what? I'm just a power redheaded bloke, and she's got a bit more tan and dark hair about her. And I can't believe that someone watched the live show or watched the show on YouTube of us and thought we could be like a. I think the comment was, "I'm going to tell my kids this is Harry and Meghan." So I don't know if I love or hate that, but good on whoever commented that.
Yeah, it's not a bad likeness. You're right. It's pretty complimentary for you, I might say too. Didn't know you had that much money, Josh.
No, neither did I, mate. But I'm just going to check my bank now because maybe the dot point is in the wrong space. But
it might be.
Tell that to my mortgage. That's what's ripping me right now.
Thanks to both of you for getting together. It's always good to put our heads together and solve all the problems in North Melbourne. I'll send this file down to the boys in the club, and I'll send it to the club, and I'm sure it will put us through for a 23-0 season. So it should be all good. I'm sure we'll get together at some stage in the season and have a chat about where it's all gone wrong. But thanks for coming on, boys.
No worries, anytime.
Thanks, Jason. Good job too, hosting. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for listening to another episode of North Pod. If you give me a rating or review on your podcast service, that would be much appreciated. And please follow me on all social media at North Pod Show. I'm on X or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I'm also very active on the North Melbourne subreddit. Hope you'll join me for the next episode.